Morning, stakeholders, and welcome to the Office of Procurement Regulations rollout of the Training Standards, Competence Levels, and Certification Requirements webinar. I am Tamara Roy, Head of Corporate Communications, and we are extremely pleased that you're able to participate in today's session. At this time, I would like to offer our apologies because our chairman and procurement regulator, Mr. Munilal Lalchan, will not be in attendance at this session. However, you can still ask questions that you may want directed to him. We will take them to him and we will get those answers back to you as soon as we can. Today, the team who will be presenting will be led by Ms. Marisa De La Rosa, our Head of Procurement Capacity Development, and she will be joined by our Senior Capacity Development Specialist, Ms. Samantha Marchan, and Ms. Melissa Ramkumar Singh. Before we begin the formal aspects of today's proceedings, please allow me to go through some helpful tips for a successful session. Please note that your mics will be muted. Your questions during the session can be sent via the chat. These questions will be collated by our team and addressed in our question and answer segment at the end of the session. Please keep your contributions helpful and be considerate to our presenters and other participants. At the end of today's session, you will be invited to provide your feedback. Feel free to help us improve future sessions to better match your needs by letting us know what worked well and what did not. This session is being recorded and will be shared via email and uploaded to our website. As a side note, we would have indicated that this session ends at 2 p.m. However, please be mindful that it may conclude earlier based on discussions after the presentation. So without further delay, please join me in inviting our first presenter for today's session, Ms. Samantha Marchan.
Thank you, Ms. Roy. Special good morning to all attendees. The agenda for today's session includes a brief introduction, background, and overview of the gaps in the current procurement system, the benefits of the standard to named procurement officers, hereinafter referred to as NPOs, a review of how the standard is structured, the competence framework and certification requirements for procurement, and an introduction into the OPR's learning management system. The objectives of this session are to sensitize on the training standards, competence levels, and certification requirements, and to introduce the OPR's learning management system. So let's get started. To provide some context, we must first understand the impact that public procurement can have on a country. According to estimates from the Ministry of Finance, central government procurement expenditure accounted for approximately 6.5% of the GDP in 2020, and an average of 6.6% of GDP in the last 5 years. This is significant. It is through the public procurement system governments acquire the inputs for the achievement of developmental objectives. Therefore, public procurement done right has the potential to significantly impact a country's development. Once equipped with a technical capability to effectively manage public procurement activities, practitioners can incorporate value-adding activities such as planning, cost control, collaborative purchasing, and effective contract management, which can result in cost savings and reduced wastage. So, what is the role of the OPR, you may ask? The OPR has many roles and responsibilities, but for today's proceedings, I will highlight the specific role that pertains to the rollout of the training standards, competence levels, and certification requirements. Section 13(1)(b) of the Act requires that the OPR set training standards, competence levels, and certification requirements to promote best practice in procurement, hereinafter referred to as the standard. In setting the standard, the OPR's goal is to support the development of public procurement capacity, training and dissemination of information, ensuring the effective application of public procurement rules through appropriate mechanisms. In this regard, the OPR has developed a competence framework for public procurement based on existing frameworks established by international counterparts in keeping with the international best practice, professional bodies, and the CARICOM qualification framework, which was approved in March 2017. This framework will be elaborated later on in the presentation. Additionally, Section 13(1)(d) of the Act requires that the OPR prepare, update, and issue model handbooks incorporating standardized bidding documents, procedural forms, and relevant documents for use in public procurement and the retention and disposal of public property. For more information on the various handbooks and guidelines, please visit the Resource Center tab of the OPR's website. For ease of access, the link for the website will be posted in the chat. I will now provide a brief background on public procurement in Trinidad and Tobago. Under the existing legislative framework, ministries and departments and some statutory authorities fall under the purview of the Central Tenders Board, while other agencies using public funds, such as state-owned enterprises, statutory authorities, and civil society, fall outside the ambit of the CTB. Public bodies falling under the purview of the CTB are not responsible for their own procurement, giving rise to a lack of human resources with the required technical competence to deliver effectively in the procurement role. On the other hand, procurement entities that are not under the purview of the CTB operate parallel procurement systems, resulting in a lack of uniformity of procedures across these agencies and an absence of standardization in procurement documentation and practices. In addition to this, procurement has been historically viewed as an administrative role. I will now review some gaps in the current system. The methods and documents used to identify the gaps and assess the challenges related to the capacity of the public procurement workforce are the Reform of the Public Sector Procurement Regime, a White Paper 2005, the Report of the Auditor General on the Public Accounts of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago for the financial year 2019, a Consolidated Event Survey Report arising out of a survey of participants at the capacity building workshops held by the OPR in 2019, and a questionnaire issued to named procurement officers in public bodies entitled Procurement Capacity Assessment Form, the results of which were documented in the OPR's Procurement Capacity Assessment Report 2020. According to the White Paper, Reform of the Public Sector Procurement Regime, the following challenges were highlighted in the current system. Deficiencies in the legal and regulatory framework. Under the current system, the CTB is the procuring agency of the state, but its activities are limited mainly to the tendering stage of the procurement cycle. As mentioned previously, the exclusion of several significant procuring agencies from the purview of the CTB resulted in parallel procurement systems and a lack of uniformity and standardization in the process and documents. It also gave rise to concerns relating to guidance and control, a lack of transparency and accountability, and unfair practice. Human resource limitations. The staffing and training of the CTB's personnel limits the organization's ability to adequately service ministries and departments. The Office of the Chief State Solicitor prepares all major contracts for goods, works, and services. However, it is neither staffed nor structured to deal efficiently with the volume and complexity of the work involved or the rapid changes in technology contracts. This contributed to delays in the preparation and execution of contracts and is a major deficiency in the system. In addition, many state-owned enterprises also lack staff properly trained in procurement. In fact, procurement is not looked upon as a professional discipline in its own right. Lack of general oversight. The partially decentralized nature of the current system extends the contracting authority among the various players without providing adequate monitoring. The CTB does not have the authority to regulate, and the regulatory procurement framework lacks the authority to audit the procurement system and ensure compliance with the rules and procedures for the award and implementation of contracts. However, the Auditor General is responsible for auditing and reporting annually on public expenditure matters. Inadequate public information. There is no system in place to provide suppliers of property and services, as well as the wider public, with full, up-to-date, and electronically accessible information on tender opportunities, information on the status of bids and awards, and the progress of major projects. There is no single national registry of contractors, consultants, and suppliers. Deficiencies highlighted in the Auditor General's Department 2019 report on the public accounts of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago are as follows. Poor internal controls. The report highlighted examples of weaknesses in internal control systems. Of note, effective internal controls reduce the risk of asset loss and reduces the opportunity for fraud. There was non-adherence to regulatory, financial guidelines and directives. The report also highlighted non-adherence to the regulatory and financial guidelines governing the maintenance of accounting records, resulting in numerous instances of erroneous calculations and inaccurate balances. Poor document management systems, both electronic and manual. There were findings of poor record keeping, and in some cases, there were no records. For instance, documents in support of the selection of vendors and contracts for the provision of services were not provided for examination. Limited human resources. The report highlighted a lack of adequate staff with knowledge and experience to ensure continuity of operations. For example, IT, which comprised mostly of contracted officers. Additionally, there is also loss of institutional knowledge if a person leaves or contracts are not renewed. Poor asset management. The report highlighted several instances of poor inventory and record management. For instance, logbooks used to monitor and control usage of assets were not maintained, and in some instances, assets purchased were not identified in the assets register. Lack of adequate segregation of duties. The report highlighted a lack of segregation of duties with respect to revenue collection, receipting, depositing, recording, and custody of assets in some instances. And there was no evidence of supervisory controls being implemented in the absence of segregation of duties. Lack of collaboration between ministries and departments, particularly in the acquisition of information systems. Ministries or departments continue to operate in silos, which resulted in duplication of effort and lack of synergy, and IT resources were not being used at its maximum capacity, resulting in value for money not being achieved. And no business continuity management system. The report noted that the ministries and departments examined lacked the required infrastructure to facilitate business continuity and disaster recovery due to lack of funding, noting that without a business continuity management system in place, the risk of financial and reputational loss, data breaches, and severe downtime is increased. These deficiencies are of grave concern as they directly impact public procurement execution and management. This now brings me to the new regime. The new public procurement system established by the Act is principle-based. The strength of a principle-based procurement system lies in the governance structure, the institutional framework, the individuals, and their ability to discharge their responsibilities prescribed by the Act and the public procurement and disposal of public property regulations. This system requires the individuals and the institutions involved in executing the procurement function to be highly skilled and capable for the full benefits to be derived, highlighting the role of capacity as a key pillar in a sound procurement system. As such, under the new procurement regime, public bodies will now be required to recruit and retain adequately trained personnel with the necessary competence to manage and execute procurement activities on its behalf, in keeping with Section 61(2) of the Act, which states that each public body shall have a procurement officer who shall be responsible for public procurement and the disposal of public property for that body. Additionally, Section 61(3) of the Act states that a reference in this Act to the commission of an offence by a public body shall be construed as a reference to the commission of the offence by the procurement officer referred to in subsection 2, or an officer who purports to act in such capacity if it is proved that A, the offence was committed with his direct consent or connivance, or B, he, with knowledge, did not exercise reasonable diligence to prevent the commission of the offence. A survey of participants at the OPR's 2019 capacity building workshops revealed the following challenges faced by public bodies in implementing the new regime. A lack of understanding by public bodies of the urgency and importance of having proper procurement measures implemented. The need for sensitization on the Act and the regulations. The requirement for training of staff and the recruitment of additional staff to efficiently execute procurement functions, and concerns about the quality of procurement training being offered by local institutions. In addition, there was a general interest in collaborative purchasing initiatives and the value that can be added from such programs. The results of a procurement capacity assessment completed by 80 named procurement officers from public bodies who attended the 2019 capacity building workshops highlighted the following capacity gaps. The absence of basic skills and knowledge required for compliance with the Act and necessary for public procurement practitioners to successfully execute functions within public bodies. Only 31.3% of the responding public bodies indicated that they have procurement and disposal staff that are qualified, possess the requisite theoretical knowledge and analytical skills to execute this critical function. In the remaining 68.7% of responding public bodies, these skills appear to be absent. The varying designations of persons holding the position of NPO and levels of sum illustrated that a significant number of public bodies have not yet understood the importance of the role of the named procurement officer as required by the Act. The respondent NPOs also highlighted that there was an absence of segregation within the procurement role, where persons responsible for finance were assigned as named procurement officers. A substantial 77% of responding named procurement officers revealed that they possessed limited decision-making authority to undertake procurement and disposal actions. This absence of control over the procurement and disposal functions allows a limited scope for ensuring that the procurement and disposal processes are compliant with the objects of the Act and threatens the independence of the function. The analysis of responses also showed that 44% of procurement practitioners were not provided with capacity building opportunities by public bodies for successful execution of the procurement and disposal functions. This now brings me to the rationale for the standard. The challenges I previously mentioned reveal the importance of capacity building initiatives. Setting training standards, competence levels, and certification requirements to promote best practices in public procurement and disposal of public property by the OPR. Currently, there are no formal training standards, educational requirements, and competence frameworks for procurement practitioners in Trinidad and Tobago. Therefore, establishing the standards and requirements for public procurement are critical to promoting the professionalization of the public procurement function, as it contributes to certifying the competencies acquired through training. Let's turn to the benefits of the standard to NPOs. Section 61(2) of the Act states that a public body shall have a procurement officer who shall be responsible for public procurement and the disposal of public property for that body and shall notify the office in writing of the name and designation of its procurement officer. The named procurement officer is responsible for overseeing and managing the procurement function within the respective public body. Public bodies would be directly responsible for complying with the Act, the regulations, handbooks, and guidelines, whilst ensuring the achievement of its strategic mandate. As such, procurement practitioners must possess the requisite skills and competence to manage the complexity of procurement being executed by the public body. They must be well equipped to handle the increasing complexity of procurement in the context where they are required to purchase in order to maximize value for money, while simultaneously taking into account socioeconomic and environmental considerations in their purchasing decisions. Of note, the standard will identify the knowledge, skills, and competencies required of procurement practitioners to build a cadre of competent procurement personnel and a globally competitive public procurement system. I will now address the benefits of the standard to NPOs. The standard serves as a self-assessment tool for procurement practitioners. It identifies the core knowledge and competencies that procurement practitioners must possess. It thus allows them to assess themselves against the standard to determine in which competency levels they fall. By undertaking such an assessment, procurement practitioners can identify any knowledge gaps and training and development required to progress in the field and potentially move on to the next career stage or next competency level. To assist practitioners in building the knowledge and competencies required for procurement, the OPR is currently acquiring a learning management system. NPOs would be provided with usernames and passwords to have access to this system once completed. The LMS would provide interactive content relating to the Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Property Act 2015 as amended, the regulations, handbooks and guidelines, systems, policies, procedures, and processes. Additional details on this would be provided later in the presentation. Overall, the standard can assist practitioners in career planning and support in the creation of a personal development plan to address the gaps identified. It allows for continuous monitoring of progress, with the standard acting as a benchmark to assess improvement and progress. I will now briefly explain how the standard is structured. The standard consists of the following elements. 1. Training standards. These are the elements that education and training institutions should ensure are included in public procurement training programs. It is an essential link between legislative and employment requirements. Training standards can be used to define curricula to ensure the quality and consistency of training. It outlines the core knowledge and capabilities that public procurement practitioners should possess. Competence levels. Competencies are the skills, knowledge, and behavioral characteristics that enable us for high performance in a particular field. Competence levels will enable individuals and employees to better understand and compare the different levels of competence that exist and allow for mobility of practitioners across public bodies. It will also provide procurement practitioners with an understanding of the skills and knowledge requirements for public procurement when linked to the levels of qualification and capabilities of practitioners holding a particular qualification. And certification requirements. This set the minimum qualification levels for practitioners operating at each competence level. They are designed to standardize the level of qualifications for public procurement practitioners operating in Trinidad and Tobago. The standard has been developed using the 3 competence levels outlined in the OPR's Developing Procurement Capacity Guideline from basic to advanced, illustrated here. These levels represent the core skills and tasks that individuals should be capable of at each advancing stage of the profession. Based on the 3 competence levels highlighted above, NPOs can fall under any of the competence levels. However, this will be guided by the level of expenditure of the public body. For example, a public body that has a small expenditure may have a procurement unit of 1 or 2 persons conducting low-level, low-risk procurement. Therefore, the NPO in this regard could be listed under the typical job roles of the basic level. However, the NPO must have the knowledge and competence required to fulfill the responsibilities related to the role. The knowledge and capability requirements included in the standard were developed in keeping with the following 5 pillars of procurement capability and performance assessment as enablers of procurement capacity. Pillar 1 represents procurement leadership and governance. Pillar 2, significant procurement planning. Pillar 3 represents managing supply. Pillar 4, performance management. And Pillar 5 represents people. Each pillar will be explained later in the presentation. Of note, NPOs should be aware of the topics as well as the knowledge and competencies required by procurement practitioners at each competency level as elaborated in the competency framework. Let's now delve into the competence framework and certification requirements for procurement. The competence framework for procurement identifies the subjects to be addressed, the topics, skills, and competencies that should be taught in a training session for procurement practitioners at different functional levels. It outlines the expected outcomes of training sessions in the various subject areas in procurement. The competence framework should be considered as a tool and an enabler for making procurement professionals' skills and qualifications easier to understand and compare. It is intended to serve as a central reference framework that will allow procurement professionals, education and training providers, employers, and other stakeholders to better understand and assess the competencies across the 3 levels of procurement capacity as established in the OPR's General Guideline, Developing Procurement Capacity, which can be accessed on the Resource Center tab of the OPR's website. The link for the website will be reposted in the chat for ease of access. The certification requirements would in turn provide the academic qualifications, level of experience, and the duration of programs to correspond with the competence levels. Of note, the topics are categorized under each pillar of procurement capability and procurement assessment which will be further explained in upcoming slides. The competency framework infrastructure is a comprehensive structure that provides an elaborate foundation to the knowledge, skills, and attributes needed for procurement practitioners within your public body. It acts as the link between an employer and an employee by describing the competencies necessary for workplace success at the different levels. At the basic competency level, a practitioner must be able to demonstrate basic factual knowledge or awareness of the procurement field, basic practical skills required to use relevant information in order to carry out complex tasks and activities of public procurement processes, and perform quality work and acquire new skills under direct supervision and within a structured context. A basic level practitioner should possess at least 3 years related work experience in a procurement role, whilst undergoing continuous training and/or a diploma in business management or a related field, and level 4 diploma in procurement and supply (SIPS) and/or equivalent certification would be an asset. At the intermediate competency level, a practitioner must be able to demonstrate factual and theoretical knowledge of the public procurement and related fields, a range of cognitive and practical skills required to use relevant information in order to carry out recurring procurement tasks and solve simple problems, and the ability to carry out public procurement processes and tasks with little supervision. A practitioner at the intermediate level should possess at least 5 years executing procurement of high risk, high value, and/or a first degree in management or related field, and also a level 6 professional diploma in procurement and supply (SIPS) or equivalent procurement certificate. At the advanced competency level, a practitioner must be able to demonstrate advanced practical and theoretical knowledge of the public procurement field, advanced practical skills required to tackle complex and less frequent tasks and problems using innovative methods and approaches, and take responsibility and ownership for completion of public procurement tasks, manage inputs by other procurement specialists, and take key decisions at different stages of the public procurement process. A practitioner at the advanced level should possess at least 8 years progressive experience executing strategic procurement activities of high risk, high value, and a postgraduate degree in procurement supply chain management or a related field. Now, recommendation received by the office for the qualifications highlighted in red on the desirable qualification column for both the basic and intermediate levels is that the scope should be extended and be more permissive, as it is the early stages and not so many procurement officials will possess these combination of qualifications. So let us know your thoughts on this in the chat. Pillar 1, Procurement Leadership and Governance, deals with how the procurement function is coordinated and managed. The elements comprising this pillar include policy and procedures governing procurement, type and levels of authority, location and reporting lines for the procurement function, procurement's business horizon, scope of influence of the procuring entity's spend, and transaction management. Legislative framework for public procurement provides public procurement practitioners with the knowledge and understanding of the legislative framework that governs public procurement in Trinidad and Tobago. Public procurement practitioners need to understand and be able to apply the Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Property Act as amended, the regulations and handbook and guidelines, and apply the principles of accountability, integrity, transparency, value for money, efficiency, fairness, equity, public confidence, local industrial development, sustainable procurement, and sustainable development, as well as understand its implications on public procurement. In the previous slide, we identified the elements comprising this pillar. It is critical that public procurement practitioners have sufficient understanding of the legislative framework pertaining to procurement. The legislative framework and policy sets out the fundamental rules, behaviors, and standards applicable to the procurement function. Understanding and knowing how to effectively implement these is crucial for compliance and to ensure delivery of the best value and successful achievement of a public body's policies and objectives. Procurement practitioners operating at the basic level must have knowledge and awareness of the legislative framework as well as the relevant policies and procedures under which they operate, as these determine what can and cannot be done in the context of procurement. Practitioners at this level must therefore understand the application of the legislative framework, the purpose or reasons for them, and implications for the procurement function. At an intermediate level, practitioners must have a working knowledge of the legislation. They should be capable of applying this knowledge and be capable of working independently in ensuring compliance and good practice. At this level, practitioners are also capable of undertaking risk assessments to understand hindrances to compliance and are capable of knowing when to seek the necessary guidance from the public body's legal department. Practitioners operating at the advanced level should have an in-depth knowledge and experience and are able to apply this knowledge at a strategic level. Thus, should be capable of interpreting the legislation and its impact on the procurement function. They should demonstrate knowledge of the legal principles and how they impact procurement procedures. As such, they should be capable of making policy recommendations for improved compliance and governance. Advanced level practitioners should have working knowledge of risk and be capable of providing direction on risk. Governance and compliance provides the basis for the development of procedures which governs a public body's day-to-day procurement activities. Public procurement practitioners should understand governance requirements for procurement and how these requirements can be implemented within their public bodies. Governance and compliance involve rules of conduct and controls on behavior. These may be legislation, contracts, industry standards, or other policies that obligate a public body's response. Procurement practitioners operating at a basic level should comply and understand various policies and procedures, industry standards, and legislation to achieve its strategic objectives and meet the needs of stakeholders. Whereas, at the intermediate level, practitioners should have the knowledge and competencies as the basic, but additionally should actively monitor compliance that is relevant to governance requirements in ensuring adherence to compliance requirements and should have the ability to make recommendations for improvement to ensure said compliance. Of note, practitioners operating at the advanced level should have all the knowledge and competencies as the basic and intermediate levels. However, practitioners at this level lead compliance reviews to assess opportunities and risk associated with the given legislation and standards on current public procurement practices and processes. He or she will have a responsibility to protect the corporate veil by performing regular actions and ensuring implementations of consistent policies and practices throughout the public body. Internal controls in procurement guide public bodies in achieving their goals. It provides a framework of accountability for their activities. Internal controls are a key aspect of procurement governance that can be established to mitigate against risk. Among the most critical controls a public body must set internally are internal controls for procurement processes. Therefore, practitioners operating at a basic level should have the understanding of the importance and use of internal controls in procurement and also understand the use of mitigation strategies to prevent breaches of the internal control process, because having the understanding of same ensures that your public body minimizes the risk of wasted resources and inefficient processes. At an intermediate level, practitioners must understand the importance and use of internal controls in procurement, but has an additional responsibility in carrying out internal controls activities to support the achievement of procurement objectives and ensure management directives to mitigate risk to the achievement of said objectives. Of note, he or she must demonstrate a commitment to monitoring the efficacy of its procurement process. Whereas practitioners operating at the advanced level has a great responsibility of assessing the effectiveness of an internal control system and must demonstrate a commitment to the use of data to inform decisions, competence, integrity, and ethical values. Establish structure, responsibility, and clear lines of authority. Enforce accountability, define process objectives and risk tolerances, and develop specific control activities for the procurement process. Tight controls ensure that your public body does not experience financial losses and spend leakage as a result of departments failing to abide by policies and procedures or not tracking budget closely. While spend leakage may never be eliminated, duplicate payments, unaccounted for orders, fraudulent expenses, and data entry mistakes can be greatly reduced with proper controls. Of note, controls create a data trail that can be followed by an auditor. Electronic procurement contributes to improved value for money, efficiency, and traceability in procurement, whilst minimizing the effect on the environment through reduced paperwork. It is relevant to procurement practitioners who apply e-procurement in daily work and policymakers involved in advancing e-procurement. Technology has made purchasing easier, cheaper, and more accountable through streamlined electronic procurement with a digital or electronic trail recorded at every level of the transaction. Therefore, practitioners operating at the basic level should be able to operate basic IT tools, coupled with an appreciation of how to exploit them to assist in various stages in the procurement cycle in an administrative capacity. The importance of having the knowledge and competence to operate the system benefits in some major administrative savings. For example, faster transactions, paperwork reduction, and easier management of purchasing and costs. At the intermediate level, practitioners should understand the wide range of benefits of e-procurement in enhancing the public procurement systems and works towards using appropriate tools to import existing systems within the public body. He or she must be familiar and comfortable with basic IT tools, working knowledge of e-procurement systems, and specifically, the ability to provide management information to assist e-sourcing and contract management process. These skills are cumulative, with each level building on the previous one. And so, a practitioner at the advanced level should have the skills and knowledge identified in the basic and intermediate levels. Of note, at the advanced level, the practitioner must have the expert knowledge in the use of e-procurement tools, strategies, implementation and management of procurement systems that interface with financial systems, reduce manual effort, and facilitate provision of meaningful procurement management information. Document management is a critical aspect of public procurement. The files maintained should include a complete record relating to every procurement transaction, whether electronically or manually. Well-organized records provide a reliable, legally feasible source of evidence of decisions and actions taken by a public body over time. Procurement practitioners are required to maintain records of procurement proceedings as evidence of having followed the prescribed policies and procedures. These records serve as the audit trail for the procurement proceedings and as such must be accurate, easily accessible, and retrievable. At a basic level, procurement practitioners must have an awareness of the importance of records management, the requirements for maintenance of appropriate procurement records. They must maintain records in accordance with established procedure and preserve procurement records for review by relevant stakeholders. At an intermediate level, procurement practitioners must be capable of reviewing documents and records to ensure compliance with the established guidelines. They should also be able to maintain records in accordance with established regulatory requirements and internal procedures, ensuring reliability and retrieving such records as required by regulatory agencies. Advanced level professionals must be capable of developing an effective document management system for the procurement function, identifying appropriate conditions for maintenance and storage, and also establish appropriate safeguards to protect the integrity of the records. Use of standardized forms are enablers of efficiency and effectiveness in public procurement management. Standardized frameworks underpin transparency in information and reduce the potential for inconsistent practices. In accordance with Section 13(1)(d) of the Act, the OPR is required to prepare, update, and issue model handbooks incorporating standardized bidding documents, procedural forms, and relevant documents for use in public procurement and the retention and disposal of public property. Additionally, Section 13(1)(p) requires that the OPR create and publish standard form contracts for public procurement and disposal of public property. By establishing standardized forms, having them publicly available and consistently applied across all public bodies, transparency is improved. This also reduces the transactional cost and lends to a more efficient process. In this regard, practitioners at the basic level must be aware of the standardized forms available for low-risk, low-value procurement and must be capable of completing the forms as required. In addition to having an awareness of these forms, practitioners at the intermediate level must understand and have the ability to complete standardized forms for high-risk, high-value procurement and be capable of providing guidance to stakeholders in the use of such forms. Additionally, they must be capable of identifying shortcomings in the forms and recommendations for improvements. Advanced practitioners must have in-depth knowledge and be capable of developing standardized forms, sensitize and train stakeholders in the use of standardized forms. They must monitor compliance with the approved standardized forms, assess the shortcomings identified in the forms, and approve modifications in consultation with relevant stakeholders. Practical issues in procurement. It is important to have an understanding of the practical issues that exist in public procurement based on case law, experience of procurement experts, and best practice case studies. Using the lessons learned in these scenarios can assist procurement practitioners to improve their own procurement processes. Several public bodies are often faced with a variety of procurement problems and challenges. The implementation of best practice procurement systems would seek to integrate different measures and high-performance business processes to solve these problems and deliver ethical, effective, and efficient outcomes. It is essential practitioners have the capability to conduct research into best practices for the improvement in procurement processes and have an understanding of the common issues that exist in public procurement. These knowledge and competencies exist with the practitioner operating at the basic level. At the intermediate level, practitioners should have the knowledge and competencies as the basic, but also be capable of providing advice and implementing mechanisms to prevent issues like allowing poor quality for lower costs, providing unclear specifications and requirements, lack of transparency, not so clear business procurement function processes, and tolerating unnecessary risk. This is where the pursuit of best practice methods becomes more critical to overall business strategy. Procurement practitioners at the advanced level lead the development and implementation of mechanisms to prevent issues from occurring to ensure compliance with procurement-related legislation. For example, the Act and the regulations, handbooks and guidelines, and avoid challenge proceedings. Additionally, the advanced level practitioner has expert knowledge and understands the issues that exist in public procurement and has a good working knowledge on case law. Pillar 2, significant procurement planning, has two aspects. One, planning how to manage the total portfolio of significant procurement and disposal actions. Two, planning for individual categories of goods and services. The elements comprising this pillar include managing the overall program of significant procurements, the procurement functions relationship and interaction with requesters in planning for significant procurements, the identification and treatment of risk in significant procurements, differentiation of the supply base, and developing category supply strategies. Pillar 3, managing supply. The focus of this pillar is on how well supply arrangements are managed over their life to optimize performance and realize expected benefits. The elements comprising this pillar include procedures for managing various types of supply arrangements, consultation and information sharing with suppliers, understanding of the procuring entity's status in major supply markets, collaboration between procurement and requesters, and practices for negotiating and dealing with suppliers. Planning, procurement planning and strategy development sets direction for the procurement function to ensure alignment with the public body's strategy and gives consideration to policy requirements for effective implementation of plans. Procurement planning identifies the need and defines objectives in measurable terms to proceed with procurement. Procurement of goods, works, and services impact on the operations of the public body and require planning to ensure that programmatic or business goals and objectives identified in the organization's strategic or business plan and in the annual procurement plan are met. Documenting and employing the strategy in accordance with organization's objectives mitigates the potential for the procurement action to be conducted in a manner that does not achieve the objects of the Act. Practitioners at a basic level must possess an awareness of the strategic issues to support the procurement function in executing strategic procurement and understand the public body's internal handbooks and guidelines. They must be capable of undertaking research in collaboration with other stakeholders to support the procurement planning process. Procurement practitioners at the intermediate level must be capable of determining when a strategic approach is required. Given the risk and value of a procurement activity, they must possess experience in participating in strategic procurement as part of a cross-functional team, have the ability to develop business cases, project plans, and manage risk. Practitioners at the intermediate level must also be capable of developing the procurement strategy for both low and high value procurement activities. Advanced level practitioners must have the ability to lead cross-functional teams in handling strategic procurement, to formulate strategic approaches to meet the procurement needs of the public body. They must be able to identify and implement appropriate procurement and contracting strategies and guide the procurement planning process, consulting experts as required. Market analysis is understanding the market forces and economic factors arising in the marketplace for products or services and how these impact your procurement. An in-depth understanding of the level of competition and the pricing structure is critical to determining the appropriate procurement strategy and achieving value for money. Market analysis enables procurement to understand how the market works, the direction in which the market is going, the competitiveness of the key suppliers or contractors within the market. It is vital for the procuring entity to have a strong understanding of the market dynamics of the industry they are looking to procure from. This means practitioners at a basic level must have an understanding of the information being collected and also understand the do's and don'ts in conducting market research when engaging with the marketplace. At the intermediate level, practitioners should have the knowledge and competence to undertake a market analysis using an appropriate market analysis tools and have the ability to identify appropriate strategies depending on the nature of the market. The results of this analysis can help the procuring entity improve and shape the strategy and tendering process and align their behavior in order to achieve better value for money, reduced prices, or an improved service. Of note, practitioners at the advanced level should have an in-depth understanding of situations where conflicts of interest arise and the ability to address these situations through market research and analysis. Additionally, he or she must have the knowledge and competence to formulate and implement strategic tactics based on the market analysis. It gives a public body the ability to understand its environment and formulate a strategic plan accordingly. This brings me to the end of my presentation, and I will now hand you over to our moderator, Ms. Roy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Samantha. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank you so much for your attention. So far, we see the comments coming through in the chat, and we continue to encourage your participation. Continue asking any questions that you would like. We will see you in the next 15 minutes. So we will return at about 10:15. You can get up, stretch your legs, get some tea, coffee, breakfast if you haven't done so as yet. See you in the next 15. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us again. We are now going to go into part 2 of the competency framework and certification requirement for procurement. This part will be presented by Melissa Ramkumar Singh, Senior Capacity Development Specialist. So without further ado, Melissa.
Thank you, Ms. Roy. Good morning, everyone. Category management helps to organize the procurement functions, resources, and contributes towards economies of scale, cost management, and enhanced supplier or contractor relationships, while gaining an in-depth understanding of how each category contributes to risk management. Category management is a structured approach to the procurement of goods and services, which applies best practice tools and techniques in the development and implementation of an integrated category strategy aligned to the organization's needs. It is a top-level framework and process that coordinates, guides, and sequences other methods such as strategic sourcing and supplier relationship management to satisfy category and organizational objectives. Therefore, it is important that practitioners at the basic level have the knowledge of category management principles and processes and understand the main benefits and issues relating to these category approaches. Practitioners at this level must also be capable of undertaking basic spend analysis to satisfy organizational objectives. Practitioners operating at the intermediate level should have the knowledge and competence to prepare detailed category management strategies and undertake strategic analysis and category research to develop and inform category management plans. This entails applying strategies to efficiently and effectively implement all the activities involved in the procurement cycle. At the advanced level, practitioners should have the experience in all aspects of category management and be capable of promoting the benefits of category management to senior stakeholders, implementing solutions and benefit realization plans. Advanced practitioners should be capable of evaluating and applying appropriate methodologies to achieve improved category management that standardizes processes and systems across the public body. This leverages internal resources such as people, knowledge, and expertise to minimize supply risk, deliver cost savings and value, improve quality and service, leverage presence in the marketplace, and drive commodity and service innovation. Of note, effectively applying category management raises the profile and competency of the procurement function across the public body. It achieves significant savings, typically from 10 to 30%. It improves service levels, quality, availability, and value for money. It addresses and reduces risk in the supply chain, and it improves stakeholder relations and enables supplier capability development. Collaborative purchasing is a mechanism to allow public bodies with similar procurements to consolidate their requirements to benefit from economies of scale, improve value for money, reducing the duplication of efforts, and benefiting from shared knowledge and expertise. Collaborative purchasing is the practice of multiple organizations coming together to purchase common goods and services, thus centralizing procurement of certain goods across public bodies. Collaborative purchasing has the potential to contribute to greater value for money through spend aggregation and economies of scale. Procurement practitioners can leverage the benefits of collaborative purchasing through better aggregation and the demand management of common goods and services across public bodies. Practitioners at the basic level must therefore have a sound knowledge of collaborative procurement strategies and be capable of identifying goods, works, or services that can be acquired through collaborative purchasing. Procurement practitioners at the intermediate level must be capable of establishing arrangements to utilize collaborative purchasing strategies, for instance, through committees with internal and external stakeholders, developing a schedule of items and a plan for implementation of collaborative purchasing strategies. These practitioners must also be capable of identifying and mitigating the potential risks and recommended courses of action to resolve risks. Advanced level practitioners must possess expert knowledge in managing collaborative purchasing and the associated complexities. They must provide advice in respect of high-risk, high-value procurement to the committees established for executing same, ensuring that appropriate agreements and approvals have been sought. Pre-qualification identifies suppliers or contractors that are capable of participating in a procurement process prior to solicitation. Pre-qualification is a process used prior to solicitation to identify qualified suppliers or contractors who can be invited to submit tenders or proposals to provide goods, works, and/or services. At the basic level, practitioners are required to understand the pre-qualification requirements established in the Act and the use of the procurement depository. They must be capable of assisting in reviewing suppliers or contractors' provision for pre-qualification. In accordance with the Act, all suppliers or contractors interested in providing goods, works, or services to public bodies or procuring entities using public funds must first be pre-qualified. The pre-qualification process is used to assess whether the suppliers or contractors attain the minimum requirements prior to engaging them in a solicitation process. It is important to note that procuring entities are required to exercise due diligence in verifying the accuracy of the information provided by the supplier or contractor prior to the award of any contract. Therefore, Practitioners at the intermediate level are required to assess financial capacity and technical competence of suppliers or contractors based on the pre-qualification record on the procurement depository and undertake due diligence checks in keeping with the information gathered on the said depository and the requirements of the Act highlighted at Section 29(1). Assessing the requirements under Section 29(1) of the Act guides a public body in respect of the information and documents that can be requested from potential suppliers or contractors as evidence of their capability and capacity to perform a procurement contract in the event of an award. After the due diligence checks are conducted, the procurement practitioner should have the knowledge and competence to advise when a pre-selection process is appropriate and recommend appropriate criteria. Advanced level practitioners lead the pre-qualification process for suppliers or contractors and provide appropriate justification when making recommendations for pre-selection. They review and approve the assessment of suppliers or contractors against the pre-qualification criteria and develop the criteria for selection of suppliers or contractors in collaboration with subject matter experts. This is essential as the practitioner ensures that each bidder who has been pre-qualified has demonstrated the ability to perform the works, services, or deliver the required goods based on the minimum requirements. The pre-qualification system will contribute to an efficient process by saving the bidder from demonstrating its general qualifications and experience to each public body. It standardizes the pre-qualification process across public bodies, allowing suppliers to operate on equal footing. Requisitioning and requirements definition is the basis upon which the procurement process is initiated. Failure to clearly define requirements can cause significant risks and impact the procurement practitioners or public bodies' ability to deliver optimal outcomes. Requisitioning and requirement definition occurs at the start of the procurement process, and they influence the success of the procurement activity. Requirement definition involves setting out in detail a clear and accurate description of the needs of the requisitioning department. These requirements are the foundation for any purchase. It communicates to the supplier what is required and informs the development of the aims, objectives, and outcomes of the procurement. Successful requirements definition entails an understanding of the requirements of the user department as well as what is available through market engagement. It influences how the process and contractor or service is managed. Of note, failure to develop the correct specification can pose significant risks and negatively impact the delivery of the procurement outcomes. Procurement practitioners at the basic level must understand the key principles in defining requirements in procurement. They must be capable of reviewing requisitions to ensure that the required documents and information are provided and work with user departments to ensure clear and objective statements of requirements, specifically as it pertains to low-risk, low-value procurements. Procurement practitioners at the intermediate level must be capable of reviewing requirements to ensure that they are clear and non-discriminatory. They should be capable of reviewing high-risk, high-value requirements and complex infrastructure requirements. They must also be capable of advising or supporting the process of developing more complex requirements. Additionally, intermediate level practitioners must ensure that the requirements are in keeping with the guidance provided in the public procurement regulations, handbooks, and guidelines. Procurement practitioners at the advanced level approve and assign the relevant procurement practitioner for execution of the procurement activity and must be capable of advising and/or supporting the development of more complex requirements. They must be capable of driving and establishing specifications in line with legislation, public procurement regulations, the handbooks and guidelines. Advanced level practitioners must also have expert market knowledge and be capable of influencing the development of requirements to drive innovation. Selection of procurement methods is a complex process and has a direct effect on the effectiveness of the procurement activity. Selection of the appropriate procurement method would ensure that the delivery of outcomes best meets the needs of the stakeholders. The determination of the most appropriate procurement method is not solely based on whether the item to be procured is a good work or service. Instead, consideration is also given to the circumstances of the specific requirement and to maximizing competition to the extent that is practical. Therefore, at the basic level, practitioners should understand the various procurement methods from best practice and procurement-related legislation, the regulations, handbooks, and guidelines. Additionally, he or she should have the knowledge and competence to select the appropriate procurement method for low-risk, low-value procurement activities and to justify selection of same. Practitioners at the intermediate level should have the capability not only research historical data on similar high-risk, high-value procurements, but also determine which procurement method and technique is appropriate, the conditions under which each may be used, and the attendant procedures to be applied for each method. Additionally, he or she should have the knowledge and competence to select the appropriate method for high-risk, high-value procurement activities and justify selection of same. Of note, clear justification must be provided by the procurement officer for the procurement method and/or technique selected for all procurements. Advanced level practitioners recommend and approve procurement methods and contract types based on the requirement definition and market analysis to ensure best practice and in keeping with procurement-related legislation, the regulations, handbooks, and guidelines. He or she should have in-depth knowledge of procurement methods and tools to maximize competition and have expert knowledge in complex procurement methods and their application, ensuring that abuse and corruption are not introduced into the process. Risk management identifies potential risks and strategies to mitigate them in accordance with the public body's risk management framework. Risk management is a fundamental aspect of the procurement process. All procurement officers should be familiar with the risk management process. All organizations, including public bodies, encounter internal and external factors that give rise to uncertainties as to their ability to achieve their objectives. Risk management is critical to ensuring that public bodies have a full and clear understanding of their ability to deliver their desired outcomes. As such, procurement practitioners must ensure risk is effectively identified, assessed, managed, mitigated, and monitored to reduce exposure to organizations and key stakeholders. Failure to identify and properly manage risks can have significant legal, financial, and/or reputational impacts. Procurement practitioners at the basic level must be capable of gathering information and undertaking risk assessments utilizing appropriate tools, for example, Supreme. They must be able to prepare risk management registers for low-risk, low-value procurements and research alternative strategies to address the identified risk. Of note, practitioners at the basic level must be capable of identifying basic risks with respect to supplier or contractor performance and conflicts of interest. At the intermediate level, practitioners must be able to research the market and the public body's position on risk and quantify those risks, providing recommendations to stakeholders. They must be able to develop and implement appropriate procurement strategies for bottlenecks and unique procurement requirements. These practitioners must be able to prepare risk management registers for high-risk, high-value procurement and facilitate actions to minimize supply disruption. Advanced level practitioners must be able to review and approve preliminary risk analyses and use risk assessments and management approaches to control the impact of risk on procurement activities. They must be capable of monitoring the risk register to facilitate actions to minimize supply disruption and associated costs. Advanced level practitioners must also be capable of using expert market knowledge to develop and communicate risk management strategies to address external risk. Strategic sourcing helps public bodies build long-term relationships and synergies with its suppliers or contractors by reinforcing the focus on the core capabilities of the suppliers or contractors. Strategic sourcing formalizes the way information is gathered and used so procuring entities can use its consolidated purchasing power to find the best possible value in the marketplace and align its procurement strategy to organizational goals. It requires analysis of what a public body buys from whom, at what price, and at what volume. It places emphasis beyond initial purchase price to focus on total cost of ownership and optimizes the sourcing process through ongoing market analysis and building relationships with supplier or contractors. Therefore, basic level practitioners should have a sound knowledge of market factors in the development of strategic sourcing process and be capable of evaluating said market factors that influence the market to assist in development of appropriate strategic sourcing plans that shape markets and improve commercial leverage. Practitioners at the intermediate level should have the competence to undertake a strategic assessment of key suppliers or contractors using modeling and techniques of analysis. They must have the ability to assess the sourcing options for the supply of goods, works, and services, establishing the capability of suppliers or contractors prior to commitment. This analysis reduces total cost, transforms sourcing within a public body, increases productivity through automation, and increases savings. Advanced level practitioners are required to assemble cross-functional teams and consult with internal stakeholders to agree on sourcing options for specific categories of purchases and develop category plans to define the approaches to be taken to sourcing categories and communicates to stakeholders. A strategic sourcing plan can help public bodies achieve a number of goals that contribute to success. For example, meeting compliance or regulatory guidelines by choosing certified components, supporting business sustainability by selecting fair trade certified goods or other sustainably grown or manufactured goods, maintaining geopolitical instability by diversifying locations of suppliers selected and creating contingency plans for those in volatile areas, minimizing risk by engaging secondary and alternative suppliers and closely monitoring changes in factors such as product availability, quality, shipping, taxes, exchange rates, and regulations. I will now hand you over to the moderator who will administer our first participant poll.
Thank you very much, Melissa. All right, so at this time, we are going to engage in a short Q&A that will be placed on the screen. All right, so you should see that coming up now. So we're going to ask you to participate and submit your answers. And after, we will engage in discussion with respect to your answers. All right, we want to remind you or encourage you to be as honest as possible with your answers so that the feedback would be rich in terms of how we incorporate it into this document and going forward. Alrighty, so that minute is up. So we had a total of 53 responses. So in relation to our poll question, based on the information provided thus far, where do you fall in terms of competence? We had 36% of our participants saying that they believe that they fall within the basic competency level. We have 36% falling within the intermediate competency level, and 28%, oh, I just saw a change actually. There's 35% basic, 37% intermediate, somebody probably changed their mind, and 28% advanced. So we thank you so much for participating in this poll. It gives us much needed feedback in terms of how we will move forward with this information. At this time, we want to invite you to take another break with us, another 15-minute break. And when we come back, we will continue with part 3 of the competency framework and certification requirement for procurement. We are giving you these breaks just to give your mind some time to absorb and digest the information, because we think it's heavy. We want you all to really understand it and be able to practice it. We continue to encourage your feedback and participation. So thank you so much so far for being such a wonderful group. We will see you back in 15 minutes, which takes us to, let me see if I can still tell the time. 10:55. Thank you. Bye. All right, stakeholders, welcome back. We hope that you're refreshed and ready to go again. We are now going to go into part 3 of the competency framework and certification requirement for procurement. To conduct this presentation will be Melissa Ramkumar Singh, our Senior Capacity Development Specialist. So Melissa, please proceed.
Thank you, Ms. Roy. We will now address the solicitation of tenders, the preparation of solicitation documents. Solicitation documents must be prepared in such a way that it clearly defines the requirements, evaluation criteria, pricing requirements, instructions, and terms and conditions of contract that will be applied. A properly drafted solicitation document is critical to a successful procurement activity. In accordance with Section 4 of the Act, solicitation document means a document issued by or on behalf of a procuring entity, including any amendments thereto, that sets out the terms and conditions of the procurement. When developing solicitation documents, procurement practitioners must clearly outline the user's requirements, the evaluation criteria, instructions to bidders, and terms and conditions that will be applied for that particular procurement activity. Additionally, they must ensure that all documents are aligned and key stakeholders are engaged in developing these requirements to ensure successful procurement outcomes. Basic level practitioners must therefore be aware of the role of the solicitation document and be able to prepare these documents specifically for low-risk, low-value procurement, and be able to differentiate between selection and award criteria and demonstrate correct application to achieve the objects of the Act. Intermediate level practitioners must be able to provide guidance on the preparation of the solicitation documents for low-risk, low-value procurement to basic practitioners. They must be able to evaluate selection and award criteria for complex, high-risk, high-value procurements and prepare solicitation documents accordingly. They must also be capable of ensuring that all solicitation documents are compliant, transparent, and avoid potential for challenges. Advanced level practitioners must be capable of defining best practice in preparing solicitation documents, ensuring compliance with the objects of the Act and good governance practices. They must also be capable of reviewing and/or developing solicitation templates for use by public bodies and for approving completed solicitation documents prior to dispatch to suppliers or contractors. They must also demonstrate expertise on specific goods, works, or services, resulting in innovative solutions. Understanding the procurement of specialist services and works leads to effective and efficient decisions regarding the procurement of same. These are key contributors to cost in public procurement. Procurement practitioners must be capable of advising internal stakeholders on the different types of purchases that will typically be contracted by the public body. In addition to having knowledge of procurement of goods, works, and services, procurement practitioners must also be capable of advising on the procurement of specialist services and works. The specific knowledge and competencies required by the practitioners are as follows. At the basic level, practitioners must have an understanding of the key issues involved in the procurement of special services and works and their implications for the public body. They must also understand the legislation surrounding the procurement of works and its effects. They must be capable of procuring specialist services and works of low risk and low value with guidance and comply with procurement-related legislation, handbooks, and guidelines. Intermediate-level practitioners must have a sound knowledge of the key issues in the procurement of specialist services and works. They must be capable of providing guidance and executing the procurement of specialist services and works of high risk, high value, ensuring compliance with the legislation, regulations, handbooks, and guidelines. Practitioners at this level must have the technical ability to execute steps at each stage of the procurement process and be capable of directing the execution of these services with close supervision and possess knowledge of construction procurement, including legislation and regulations in relation to health, safety, and the environment. Advanced level practitioners should have expert knowledge of the key issues in the procurement of specialist services and works and provide advice in their execution. They must be able to monitor and approve their execution and be capable of managing risk and resolving issues that arise. Managing the solicitation process requires that practitioners have an understanding of the objects of the Act and demonstrate adherence to the solicitation process, ensuring that the objects are achieved. Solicitation, in simple terms, is the process of requesting bids or proposals from potential suppliers or contractors. The procurement practitioner has discretion to determine what solicitation materials are appropriate for a given procurement and the manner in which they will be prepared. Therefore, it is important that practitioners at the basic level have the ability to apply and manage basic procurement processes for low-risk, low-value procurement. They must understand the solicitation procedures and have some experience in negotiations with support. Practitioners at the intermediate level should be familiar and comfortable with all aspects of the solicitation process. They should have the experience in managing high-risk, high-value procurement and negotiation processes and ensuring that the solicitation process is compliant with the public body's handbooks and guidelines. This means that procurement practitioners should have the knowledge of and competency in various solicitation methods and sourcing tools that can be utilized depending on the circumstance of the particular procurement. At the advanced level, practitioners should have expert knowledge in all aspects of the solicitation process and should be capable of resolving issues that arise. Advanced level practitioners must be capable of applying judgment to determine how best to apply processes to secure best value in any procurement circumstance and approves all related documents and approaches in the management of the solicitation process. Evaluation and negotiation must be supported by a transparent and structured process that can withstand scrutiny by stakeholders and suppliers or contractors if the process and/or public body is not to be brought into disrepute. Additionally, for a successful evaluation, evaluation committees must have a clear understanding of their roles and responsibilities and have the required competence to execute their function. Negotiation, on the other hand, drives value. It gains the appropriate policy outcomes and provides an opportunity for added value to be built into the acquisition and provides a platform for enhanced delivery. The evaluation and award process are crucial to procurement and requires a clear, transparent process that can withstand scrutiny and challenge by suppliers and stakeholders. Procurement practitioners must therefore have the knowledge of legislation, handbooks and guidelines and their application and be able to guide the evaluation process ensuring compliance. Practitioners at the basic level should be capable of contributing to the assessment of low-risk, low-value procurements, ensuring evaluating potential suppliers or contractors using predetermined evaluation criteria, and preparing the evaluation report, making recommendations to support the decision to award. In terms of negotiations, basic level practitioners should understand the principles, tools, and techniques of basic negotiations and may be involved in negotiation processes under close supervision. They must be capable of assisting with preparing and planning for the negotiation process and supporting the analysis of data and information under guidance and assisting with the preparation of reports as required. Practitioners at the intermediate level should evaluate high-risk, high-value tender submissions by suppliers or contractors on the basis of predetermined evaluation criteria, agreed weighting and scoring, and contributed to the preparation of the evaluation report. They must be capable of providing guidance and close supervision to basic level practitioners on the assessment and management of low-risk, low-value procurements and negotiations. Intermediate level practitioners must be capable of ensuring appropriate scoring is defined against the weighting criteria to ensure transparency in decision-making, undertaking ratio analysis, and assessing the financial capability of suppliers or contractors. Intermediate level practitioners must be capable of providing expert guidance to the evaluation committee on the selection of preferred suppliers or contractors with clear justification to support any award or debrief. In terms of negotiation, intermediate level practitioners must understand when and how to negotiate in keeping with the procurement-related legislation, handbooks and guidelines, and be capable of developing detailed negotiation plans and targets in consultation with internal stakeholders, ensuring that roles and responsibilities are understood, documenting the outcomes and agreements as required. The advanced level practitioner must be capable of applying knowledge of the evaluation and award process in a strategic manner. As such, procurement professionals at the advanced level have ultimate accountability for the evaluation process and any challenges arising from said processes. They must be capable of leading the development of robust, transparent, and structured evaluation processes reflecting good governance and compliance with requirements. Practitioners at this level review and sign off on the evaluation and negotiation reports for all procurement processes and prepare the documentation for submission to the Procurement and Disposal Advisory Committee or PDAC, if applicable. They must be capable of discussing matters of clarification with evaluation committees and or PDAC where applicable. Advanced level practitioners must also ensure that the lessons learned from the contract and supplier management process feed into the development of selection and or award criteria. In terms of negotiations, advanced level practitioners must demonstrate extensive experience in complex negotiations, leading on complex and strategically important negotiations, and be capable of setting objectives and providing advice and direction to the procurement team and others within the public body. Contract law and contract drafting are critical to ensuring that there is an understanding of the key performance indicators that define expectations of both parties to the contract to allow better measurement and management of risks, service, and performance supported with a legally binding framework. The law of contract is a set of rules governing the relationship, content, and validity of an agreement between two or more persons, either individuals, companies, or other institutions regarding the sale of goods or the provision of services. It serves as a form of protection, as a contract is an agreement giving rise to obligations which are enforced or recognized by law. Therefore, it is important that practitioners at the basic level have sound knowledge of the basics of contract law and understand when to seek guidance in relation to contractual issues. Procurement practitioners at the basic level must be able to contribute to and support the preparation of contract terms and conditions, KPIs, and contract documentation for low-risk, low-value procurements, and validates with guidance that contracts for the supply of goods, works, and services of low risk and low value comply with the Act, regulations, handbooks, and guidelines. At the intermediate level, practitioners should have the knowledge and competence of the nature, application, and implications of contract law. They should be able to prepare contract terms and conditions, KPIs, and contract documentation for high-risk, high-value procurements, and advise with guidance whether contracts for the supply of goods, works, and services comply with the Act, regulations, handbooks, and guidance. They should have the ability to interpret and advise on key regulations, legislation, and is able to interpret legal and commercial implications relating to the formation of contracts. Contract law not only governs what happens when a contract breaks down, but it also establishes what the terms of the contract are in the event of a dispute. At the advanced level, practitioners should have expert knowledge of and an understanding of the nature, application, and implications of contract, in particular, complexities in contract law. Advanced level practitioners should be able to evaluate and recommend appropriate contract forms for complex projects and interpret clauses included in contract forms. They should be able to make the required revisions to optional clauses and schedules, ensuring that an appropriate performance management framework is in place to support performance of contractual requirements. Additionally, practitioners at this level should be able to lead on the organizational approach to contract development and practices, enabling sustainable value for money solutions and alignment with government policy. Practitioners at this level should be capable of reviewing and engaging in complex, high-risk, high-value contracts and directing activities where escalation or contract failure arises. Of note, when contracts are drafted well, public bodies can enjoy several benefits, from avoiding a breach of contract and litigation to improved business relationships. We will now address contract management to close out. Contract management is important in ensuring that what has been procured is delivered on time and at the right place, meets the quality specified, and is in keeping with the agreed price. Contract management is the effective and efficient monitoring of procurement contract activities with the aim of ensuring that goods, works, and services are delivered in a timely manner at the agreed cost and in accordance with the specified requirements. At the basic level, practitioners should have awareness and understanding of contract management, support the contract management process, and gather data for inclusion in supplier performance reviews. Practitioners at the basic level have responsibility for contract management of low-risk, low-value contracts and putting in place appropriate KPIs required to achieve the desired objectives. Additionally, practitioners at this level should work closely with suppliers or contractors for low-risk, low-value contracts to manage and monitor contracts and undertake ongoing risk assessments, recommending mitigation strategies when necessary. Contract management is crucial to the success of not only the contract, but also the relationship between the procuring entity and the supplier or contractor. Contract management encompasses all activities during the life cycle of a contract, starting with the establishment of the contract to its closeout and the acceptance of the goods, works, or services. This process requires an understanding of the contract's major components, awareness of delivery dates, disbursement dates, the payments due, terms and conditions, and end dates. Practitioners at the intermediate level play a central role in providing and determining whether a supplier or contractor is meeting the requisite quality levels and performing tasks on time and within budget. He or she also has responsibility for contract management of high-risk, high-value contracts, providing oversight of low-risk, low-value contracts, and putting in place appropriate key performance indicators required to achieve the desired objectives of high-risk, high-value contracts, developing contract management techniques or strategies, and reporting and implementing same. At the advanced level, practitioners should have the capability to lead and champion continuous improvement programs to enable innovation, to optimize life cycle costs and value, and to deliver longer-term sustainable outcomes and commitments. Practitioners at the advanced level must provide leadership, mentorship, or advice on escalated supplier management issues and contracts. Efficient contract management includes establishing communication channels and protocols, monitoring progress towards the achievement of contract deliverables, managing payments, controlling changes in the contract, and measuring contractor performance, and closing out the contract. Inventory management focuses on establishing an effective inventory management system for incoming and outgoing goods, creating a source of value for public bodies. Efficient inventory management can be a source of added value by minimizing inventory costs and ensuring appropriate storage and distribution conditions. Knowing when to order, how much to order, and where to stock products can result in significant costs if not appropriately managed. As such, Regulation 5.5 of the Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Property, Retention of Public Property and Disposal of Personal Property Regulations 2021 requires that public bodies establish a stores and inventory management system and assign a trained, technically capable public officer to effectively manage the receipt, storage, issuance, and disposal identification of personal property under its purview. For effective management of the procurement function, practitioners must have some knowledge of inventory management, ensuring quality and timely distribution, and managing the costs associated with receiving and holding stock. At the basic level, practitioners must have an awareness of the concept of inventory management and support the inventory management process under guidance. They must have a clear understanding of goods turnover, ordering, receipting, safe handling, and stock record keeping, and be capable of identifying issues and escalating in the case of damage, loss, or theft. Basic level practitioners must also be capable of contributing ideas for the improvement of inventory management and suggest quality and efficiency improvements. Intermediate level practitioners should have a sound knowledge of inventory management and provide guidance on the inventory management process. They must be capable of evaluating demand for supplies and stock holding requirements in keeping with the inventory management policy. Practitioners at the intermediate level must also be capable of proposing recommendations for improvement of the inventory management process, exploiting opportunities while assessing and monitoring risk. Advanced level practitioners must be experienced in design, implementation, and management of inventory control systems to maintain optimal inventory, minimizing money tied up in stock while maintaining optimum levels of customer service. Advanced level practitioners must also be capable of providing direction to the relevant functions to facilitate efficient and effective inventory management while ensuring proper control and accounting for stores and stocks where applicable. Supplier or contractor management presents opportunities to better understand and optimize a supplier or contractor's capability and capacity and considers how to improve processes to deliver greater value. It also allows for a more informed assessment and management of risk by procuring entities. Effective contract management is critical to ensuring that contractual commitments with respect to time, cost, quality, and other agreed requirements are met. Supplier or contractor management allows for the early identification of issues, opportunities for process improvements, and opportunities to maximize value. Poor contract management can lead to failure by supplier or contractor to satisfactorily perform a contract, thus exposing public bodies to financial and operational risk. Basic level practitioners should recognize the importance of compliance and follow good practice in supplier or contractor management. They should be capable of analyzing supplier or contractor activities and providing reports on quality, frequency, defect rates to support supplier or contractor monitoring. They should also be capable of undertaking regular supplier or contractor engagement and management, working with suppliers or contractors to identify issues, understand development or improvement opportunities, and allocating clear responsibilities for action. Basic level practitioners should also be capable of collating, recording, and using stakeholder feedback to inform regular supplier or contractor review meetings for low-risk, low-value procurements. Practitioners at the intermediate level are required to lead market research to help identify added value, innovation, or continuous improvement opportunities, collate, record, and use stakeholder feedback to inform regular supplier or contractor review meetings for high-risk, high-value procurements. Develop key strategic relationships with suppliers or contractors and build and maintain appropriate relationships to help in the delivery of contracts. Intermediate level practitioners must be capable of monitoring supplier or contractor performance to help identify trends and holistic improvement opportunities and creating and implementing improvement plans where appropriate. At the advanced level, practitioners should have the knowledge and competence to develop and build productive high-level relationships and provide advice to stakeholders on issues affecting the procurement process, while putting in place strategies to attract and retain efficient suppliers or contractors. Advanced level practitioners should be capable of facilitating cross-cutting programs or relationships to proactively explore and exploit opportunities for added value, innovation, social value, continuous improvement, economic or environmental value in more complex projects. Asset disposal is an important element of the procurement cycle and it presents opportunities for achieving the objects of the Act when executed efficiently. A sound disposal plan helps mitigate the risk that an asset is retained for too long, disposed of too early, or causes environmental damage through improper practices. Section 4 of the Act defines disposal as the transfer without value, sale, lease, concession, or other alienation of property that is owned by a public body. Under the new legislative framework, public bodies will be responsible for the disposal of stores and equipment which are deemed unserviceable, obsolete, or surplus, utilizing the most appropriate means. In fact, Section 55 of the Act requires that each public body establish a disposal committee comprising not less than 3 officers for the purpose of recommending the best method of disposing of unserviceable, obsolete, or surplus stores or equipment. It is recommended that a procurement representative sit on the disposal committee. In this regard, procurement professionals must have a sound knowledge and understanding of the asset disposal process. The competence framework specifies that basic level practitioners must have a sound knowledge of the basics of the asset disposal process, compliant with procurement legislation, regulations, handbooks, and guidelines. They must be capable of identifying assets for disposal, completing the request for asset disposal, and be capable of supporting the asset disposal process for low-risk, low-value items. At the intermediate level, however, practitioners must be experienced in the asset disposal process, complying with legislation, regulations, handbooks, and guidelines. They must be capable of identifying high-risk, high-value assets for disposal and completing the request for asset disposal as well as the relevant records. Intermediate level practitioners must also be capable of leading the asset disposal process for high-risk, high-value items and providing guidance on low-risk, low-value items, identifying and mitigating potential risks. Advanced level practitioners should possess expert knowledge of the asset disposal process. They must be capable of monitoring the asset disposal process and advising on the achievement of environmental, social, and economic value. These practitioners must also play a strategic role in the asset disposal process, working with internal stakeholders in the development of internal handbooks and guidelines for asset disposal and seeking opportunities for continuous improvement. Pillar 4, Performance Management, focuses on the collection, collation, and analysis of information on targets set and results achieved, as well as its application to support good procurement performance. The elements of this pillar include assessing the effectiveness of the procurement function, assessing the effectiveness of significant procurement projects, and management of information. Performance measurement and management is a way of managing the outputs, deliverables, and key performance indicators of procurement and the public body's performance. It is used to address non-compliance issues and informs continuous improvement opportunities for increased value for money, innovation, and/or decreased risk. Procurement measurement and management are important aspects of building a successful procurement system. They enable monitoring of outputs and deliverables in a tangible way using key performance indicators and non-compliance to inform opportunities for improvement, greater efficiency, and effectiveness. Measuring, monitoring, and reporting against procurement objectives will assist the public body in remaining focused on achieving the objectives set out in its annual procurement plan. This measurement and management has been incorporated as part of the new procurement system. For instance, in accordance with Section 13(1)(g) of the Act, The OPR must undertake an assessment of the overall performance of the procurement system. And Section 24 of the Act further states that this assessment is to be included in the report of the regulator. The data for inclusion in the report must be submitted by public bodies via the procurement depository established by the OPR. The data will form the basis of the procurement regulator's annual report on procurement and disposal of public property to Parliament. All these requirements form part of the system of measurement and management for a robust procurement system. To facilitate this, procurement practitioners must possess knowledge and competencies in this area. Basic level practitioners must collate and provide details for specific contracts and general performance reporting as required by the legislation, handbooks, and guidelines. They also play an active role in monitoring key performance indicators for low-risk, low-value projects within the department and with suppliers or contractors, identifying performance gaps and making recommendations for improvement. These practitioners must be capable of complete management and performance measurement of low-risk, low-value procurements. Intermediate level practitioners must undertake performance monitoring and provide guidance through data collection and gathering and managing their own performance and time through agreed objectives. They must also be capable of managing the development of KPIs for high-risk, high-value suppliers or contractors and monitoring as appropriate. Intermediate level practitioners should play a significant role in performance measurement against targets and recommending corrective action and should be capable of creating improvement plans and preparing procurement improvement reports as required by the legislation, handbooks, and guidelines. These practitioners must also be capable of monitoring performance, identifying and negotiating milestones, and resolving difficulties through negotiation. Advanced level practitioners should be experts at establishing and tracking performance through the creation of metrics. They should have the ability to track direct benefits of performance, which will be captured and disseminated effectively to senior management, other stakeholders, and as required by the procurement legislation, regulations, handbooks, and guidelines. Advanced level practitioners are instrumental in developing procurement strategies and setting targets and indicators for the public body. They must proactively drive, support, and endorse performance management practice and be highly experienced in identifying and negotiating milestones and in monitoring performance. These practitioners must proactively disseminate a methodology in line with the procurement strategy, providing a strong focus on quality, on-time delivery of a procurement activity and reporting on all these elements to senior management and other stakeholders. Continuous improvement is of fundamental importance to the public body. Implementing appropriate continuous improvement methodologies to undertake root cause analysis, assess opportunities, and appraise options which can contribute to cost savings and improve value. Continuous improvement seeks to improve every process in an organization by focusing on enhancing the activities that generate the most value for your stakeholders while removing as many waste activities as possible. Therefore, it is important that practitioners at the basic level have the knowledge and competence to identify problems relating to defective procurement processes and practice by collecting data and monitoring performance, monitoring compliance to current practice, and looking for areas where performance standards are not being achieved and could be improved. They must be capable of setting smart targets for performance improvements in a range of situations for low-risk, low-value procurements and agreeing their application with suppliers or contractors and key stakeholders, evaluating lessons learned, and communicating same to stakeholders. Practitioners at the intermediate level are required to identify and practice ways of delivering value through effective and improved procurement processes, through cost and quality, and researching and creating benchmarks of processes or performance of the public body's procurement function. Intermediate level practitioners must be capable of setting SMART targets for performance improvements in a range of situations for high-risk, high-value procurements, and agreeing their application with suppliers or contractors and key stakeholders, setting up forums and mechanisms for continuous feedback and reviews, recommendations for improvement on a frequent basis, and as a way of producing change. They must be capable of creating and implementing improvement plans for their own area of work and correcting and improving defective or average performance. Intermediate level practitioners must be capable of demonstrating improved implementation of standards, processes, or other actions with a supplier or contractor as a result of planned continuous improvement. At the advanced level, practitioners should develop a culture of continuous improvement, lead programs to collate and analyze data to formulate strategies and plans for improvement of procurement issues, and devise root cause analysis to evaluate problems experienced and apply strategic methods for the development of improvement plans. These practitioners should keep up to date with developments in markets and other businesses to drive appropriate improvement methodologies. This will create a suitable environment for your team to improve, and these efforts can lead to incremental improvement over time or breakthrough improvement all at once. Pillar 5 focuses on people. It relates to staff resources undertaking procurement activities and staff expertise. The elements comprising this pillar include the number and expertise of staff involved in procurement, the types of tasks of those involved in procurement, incentives and rewards for performance, procurement and requester staff collaboration, and career development for those involved in procurement. Stakeholder relationship management requires an in-depth understanding of complex customer and stakeholder relationships, managing expectations through a controlled process. It assists with identifying situations and interactions where specific relationship management methods may be applied to improve the contribution of the procurement function. It ensures credibility, buy-in, and support. Stakeholder management is the process by which you organize, monitor, and improve your relationships with your stakeholders. It involves systematically identifying stakeholders, analyzing their needs and expectations, and planning and implementing various tasks to engage with them. Stakeholders include shareholders, employees, customers, suppliers or contractors, state institutions, and the general public. A vital part of running a successful procurement is to develop and maintain good stakeholder relationships. At the basic level, practitioners are required to develop and maintain relationships through effective communication with internal and external stakeholders to promote effective procurement processes. They must advise stakeholders on the interpretation of internal handbooks and guidelines for procurement and offer routine advice to internal stakeholders on procurement issues. At the intermediate level, practitioners should have the knowledge and competence to monitor the work of internal stakeholders to ensure that they understand and comply with requirements. They must promote the work of the procurement function from a position of influence to internal stakeholders across the public body, motivating colleagues and other internal stakeholders to achieve their commitment to the work of the procurement function. Practitioners at the intermediate level must contribute to the development of handbooks and guidelines and represent the procurement function, liaising with internal and external stakeholders to develop networks, strategies, and plans for management and implementation of same. Advanced level practitioners should be interpersonally savvy and relate well to all types of people, both inside and outside of the public body. He or she should have the knowledge and competence to build effective relationships which are constructive and appropriate for their purpose. They must manage the expectations of relationships through a controlled process. Advanced level practitioners must be capable of adopting the appropriate interpersonal style and using negotiation strategies where the situation arises. They must be able to evaluate stakeholder plans to achieve effective procurement and create communication plans to achieve buy-in for procurement plans by internal and external stakeholders. Public bodies that have grasped the importance of actively developing and sustaining relationships with their stakeholders will reap the benefits of improved risk management, increased stakeholder support, and better outcomes on the ground, allowing public bodies to reduce costs and maximize value. Effective communication is an essential attribute of a procurement and supply professional. Creating simplicity aids understanding and buy-in. It facilitates process efficiency and ultimately delivers better outcomes and results. Effective communication helps to build the credibility of individuals or public bodies, raising the profile of the procurement function. It helps reduce the burden on suppliers or contractors when tendering for public procurement opportunities. Communication is a key aspect of procurement. Having clear, timely, and accurate communication with internal and external stakeholders can have a significant impact on the success of a public body's procurement activities. Procurement is largely centered on people and their interaction. Therefore, effectively communicating your objectives, results, requirements, and performance indicators to stakeholders goes a long way towards improving efficiency and building the credibility of the procurement function. As such, this competence framework requires that procurement practitioners are capable of effective communication. In the case of basic level practitioners, they must be capable of creating well-written correspondence under guidance. They must be experienced in using multiple communication methods, appropriately engaging and interacting in meetings and discussions when required. They must demonstrate good listening skills, be capable of preparing documents for review by intermediate or advanced level practitioners, and be able to present data in an effective and meaningful way. Intermediate level practitioners must understand the importance of well-written communication and should require limited verification of their work. They must be capable of providing guidance on written correspondence and presenting well-structured, precise information. They must be effective presenters, capable of adapting their style to the audience. Intermediate level practitioners must also know when to listen and be able to ask questions to clarify their understanding. They must communicate clearly and effectively in a well-organized manner, identifying and maintaining information flows with colleagues who influence their work. These practitioners must be capable of preparing documents for use by managers and providing timely and relevant information to customers and stakeholders. Advanced level practitioners should be excellent communicators who adapt to the audience as and when necessary, fostering and encouraging new and different ways of communication. They are champions of change and embed change management principles and confidently sells a long-term vision using impactful communications. Advanced level practitioners must be capable of leading high-level discussions and dealing with participants at all levels. They must be able to listen to arguments and recognize the merits, flaws, and issues. These practitioners must be capable of issuing written communication that impact on strategic operations or influences the direction of public procurement activities. We have now reached the end of the competence framework. I'll now hand you over to the moderator who will administer our second participant pool.
Good morning again, stakeholders. So on your screen, we will have our second poll. And just as our first poll, we encourage you to be honest and give us that feedback so that we can further assist you in this process.
All right, so we have the results of the poll question based on your level of competence. How prepared are you for full proclamation of the Act? So we have 88%, of our respondents saying they are between 0 to 25% ready. 45% of you feel that you're between 26 to 50% ready. 41% believes they're 51 to 75% ready, and 6% of participants believe they're between 76 to 100% ready. So we thank you so much for your participation. We will now break for lunch. You have 40 minutes until, so we will return at about 12:40, thereabouts. We will put the timer on the screen. So enjoy your lunch. We will see you back for more information and our Q&A session. All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. We hope you enjoyed your lunch. Right now, we are going to go into our last item on the agenda before we open up the Q&A session. And that is taking you through the OPR's learning management system. And to do that, we have Melissa Ramkumar Singh, our Senior Capacity Development Specialist, who will do so now.
Thank you, Ms. Roy. Welcome back, everyone. I'll now introduce the OPR's learning management system. What is a learning management system? A learning management system, or LMS, is a software application that administers documents, tracks, reports, automates, and delivers educational courses, training, and learning and development programs. As mentioned previously, the OPR is in the process of acquiring a learning management system. The OPR's LMS is expected to provide a new learning experience for local and foreign suppliers or contractors, local public bodies, and the staff of the OPR. It will provide interactive content relating to the Act, the regulations, handbooks and guidelines, systems, policies, procedures, and processes. So how will the LMS function? The OPR will develop and upload content in the LMS relating to the 4 stages of the public procurement proceedings and the elements of this competence framework. Users will have access to content and be able to review the content on demand. For instance, once the LMS is completed, NPOs will be provided with usernames and passwords to access the system. The OPR will monitor the progress of participants on the system. And once a user has successfully completed the different training modules, certificates of participation would be issued by the OPR. The OPR envisages that this platform will transform its capacity building interventions by enabling us to better serve you, our stakeholders, through the delivery of mobile-friendly content that is accessible on demand, thus improving availability. From a monitoring perspective, the platform will assist the OPR in tracking and reporting on the progress of its learners, allowing us to target our interventions where it is needed most. Through this LMS platform, the OPR will be revolutionizing the delivery of its capacity building program. We have now reached the end of our presentation for today. I thank you for your attention and we'll now take your questions via the chat.